There it is. All right. Well, thank you for everybody for being here. We are going to go over the FY, and that should say 26 RFP overview. Thank you, Lindsay, for the CBCAP grant. And we're going to start out with introductions. I'm Christy Wyckoff, and I'm with the Children's Cabinet, and I oversee the CBCAP grant along with one other grant within the cabinet. And we have a new assistant director, Craig Barnes. He's here with us today. He started 6 weeks ago, and he's been a great asset these first 6 weeks. And his first big project we're launching today. So I'll let him introduce himself.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks, Christy. Really just excited to be here, excited to see the rollout, all the hard work that's gone into this from everybody on the back end. So that's really all I'm going to say. Just excited to be here, and thanks for attending today.
All
Good
right,
afternoon, everyone. I can jump in here for you, Christy. I'm Megan Chizik. I work at the Center for Public Partnerships and Research at the University of Kansas, and I'll pass this over to a couple of my colleagues in a minute, but just as a means of orientation, the Children's Cabinet partners with KU CPPR, which is our acronym, to support CBCAP with technical assistance, training, and the overall evaluation. We work very closely with grantees. I see a lot of familiar faces, people I know and have worked with for many years now, and then many new faces. So we're glad you're here, and we're excited to share the latest information with you. Maggie?
Thank you, Megan, and welcome everyone. We're excited to be here today. My name is Maggie Hart. I'm also with KU CPPR, and I help support the work with CBCAP and our evaluation of the program. I'll turn it over to Lindsay.
Good afternoon, Lindsay O'Ryan, also at KU CPPR. I help to support our Kansas Common App in collaboration with my colleague, Clayton, who I'll turn it over to now.
Hello, everyone. My name is Clayton Gerard. Unsurprisingly, I am also with KU CPPR. I do a lot of the background work with the Kansas Common App, which is the grant platform that the CBCAP application is located on. So at any point, if you fill out a technical assistance request or something, you'll probably receive an email from me. So this is my face before you see my name in emails. And I'll pass it back to Christy.
All right. Well, I think Megan or Maggie is going to start out with this overview. So
yeah, I can kick us off. So we have some slides we're going to walk through with you today, and then we will also shift over to the Children's Cabinet website and orient you to where you can find all of the materials for the RFP. And then Clayton will walk us through the Common App application. So we'll start with just a little bit about CBCAP for folks who may be new. So it stands for Community-Based Child Abuse Prevention, and these are federal funds that come to each state. It is a federal formula grant from the federal government. It is part of CAPTA, which is reauthorized every year, and it is a formula grant. So the state of Kansas receives a different award amount every year, which we usually find out around right before the grant starts in late September every year. So just kind of to orient you to the philosophy, CBCAP is really intended to be a primary and secondary prevention funded initiatives. So the state receives funding and then decides, each state decides how they allocate that funding. And the Children's Cabinet is the state lead for Kansas, and the bulk of the funding that comes to us from CBCAP goes out to community-based grantees. So community-based grantees need to focus their funding and their programs toward primary and secondary prevention approaches. So this is really about supporting families before a crisis, or kind of at the point of a crisis, to mitigate any further fallout. So we're looking to stabilize families and get further upstream, if you will. So it's really, if you think about primary prevention, this is very universal approaches. You're not targeting necessarily a specific group. This is really intended to be a universal support to all families to help stabilize and prevent the likelihood of abuse or neglect ever happening. And then secondary prevention is targeted a little bit more. It's targeted to specific groups or specific populations to strengthen and support those individuals who may be struggling with a particular need. And then as you can see in this diagram, there are also two other bubbles. Really, we're looking to promote well-being through these funds. So the intention is to be innovative. CBCAP allows a lot of flexibility and how the funding is divvied out. So we're always seeking new innovation and ways to promote family well-being. And then the final circle here, you'll see says parent and caregiver partnerships. And this is really the crux of it, is that everything should be co-designed with the folks who are kind of at the end of the service. So you're partnering with your lived experts, your parents, your caregivers, who have been there and know best what they need and how you can help. So we expect all programs that apply to partner and co-design throughout the process. So that means with the ideation, the implementation, and the evaluation process. Next slide, Lindsay. Okay, so this is not new to how the cabinet has targeted CBCAP funding, but for folks who are new, these funds are intended for children and families birth to 5, including prenatal support. So the focus population for CBCAP funding is that early childhood education or early childhood ecosystem. It does not include children in foster care. So these funds, again, are promoting prevention of child welfare. So if someone is involved in the child welfare system, there are other services and funding sources for those families, and that is not the purpose of CBCAP funding. We also have, so you've got the children, you've got the parents and caregivers and families with young children and prenatal supports. And then we have a note here about other participants. So this is really, we have, often there's training and education for professional development, and that is not going to be children and families. That's going to be our providers and professionals working with these families. And that can include things around well-being or mandated, or not mandated, but the supporting versus mandated reporting, and really that focus on raising awareness around prevention and promoting well-being. So those might be some of the recipients that fall into those categories. One thing to note is we recognize that there are families with children of all ages. So obviously it's not excluding families who have children who are older, but the intention is that there is a child in the family who is in that age range, that birth to 5. Slide. Okay, so there are 2 types of grants. We have community-based and statewide. And the community-based grants, you see kind of a max request here, but some examples of the types of community-based programs include comprehensive support to families that focus on stability, improving access to available resources and supports. It could be caregiver partnership, leadership, and engagement. Could be concrete supports to stabilize families. Could also include things like respite, substance use, treatment, care coordination, case management, housing, home visiting. I mean, the list sort of goes on and on here, as long as the focus is really on the kind of underserved and underrepresented populations that fall into those categories, that 0 to 5. Statewide applicants are, that is expected to be touching the whole state. So the approaches need to support the state as a whole. So this could be the professional development is available to anyone virtually, as an example, or public awareness campaigns. What else? Promoting parent caregiver partnership, leadership, and engagement as a whole. Okay. Next slide. And then we just want to let folks know that because this is federal funding, the CBCAP program does adhere to the executive orders that were recently issued from the White House. And we will make this slideshow available so you can link to these directly, just so you know. But we want to make sure folks understand that the expectation is that any application and program adheres to the executive orders regarding DEIB, gender, and I'm trying to remember if there's anything else that I'm missing, but those are kind of the latest ones. Right, and then our eligible applicants include 501c3 organizations, Kansas county or city governments, or USDs. Now I'm going to turn it over to Maggie to talk about collaborations.
Thank you, Megan. Yeah, okay, thanks, Lindsay. So the two different types of collaborations that we look for in the CBCAP programs are with service partners and then also with parents and caregivers, as Megan discussed at the beginning when talking about the CBCAP philosophy. Lindsay, you can go ahead to the next slide. So as part of the collaboration process, there's a new component to the RFP process and application process this year, and that's uploading partner assurances forms for each funded and unfunded or non-funded partner that your proposed program would be working with. So this means that there is a template that you should use to document your partnership and talk about the commitment between your applying organization and then the partner organization with your proposed work. You can see here on the slide that it gives examples and kind of explains what a funded partner and a non-funded partner would be. A funded partner example would be if your organization receives a CBCAP award and then you would be sub-awarding part of that funding to the partner to help carry out that work. So just something to be aware of as you go through the application process, especially for any organizations that have applied in the past. This is something new that has been added to the process. And we are happy to answer any questions or provide any guidance as you work with organizations to get the template filled out and submitted as part of your application. Next slide, Lindsay. So now we're going to go into a little bit of the evaluation pieces of the RFP and application process for returning applicants. This is all very similar to what you have seen before. And then for anyone new, this is kind of a snapshot of the different measures of success that the CBCAP program uses to look at how effective the programs are that you all are proposing in your applications that you'll submit. Next slide, Lindsay. So this is another look at the evaluation work of the CBCAP programs. So this table shows the CBCAP target goals and outcomes. And so we can see the target goals are cultivating strong families and cultivating strong communities. And then the outcomes show kind of what we're looking for each CBCAP program to bring out in their program work. And so you can take a look at the table and see that, for example, one of the outcomes for cultivating strong families is fostering that effective engagement of families and communities. And then you can see where it demonstrates the evaluation approach that will be used to look at how well those outcomes are being achieved. So the PFS2 and DAISY data and ripple effects mapping data, those are all different approaches that we use and work with grantees to provide TA on how to adopt and implement those tools in your CBCAP program. Next slide, Lindsay. So this slide is another piece of the evaluation puzzle. It's another piece of something that's required in your application upload. We do ask all applicants to complete a logic model template and include it in your application package. For those of you who are returning applicants, this is the same logic model template that you've seen before. There's nothing really that has changed here. But really the intent is to be able to show how each of the required CBCAP outcomes aligns with your program design. So that program that you're proposing in your application should align with the CBCAP outcomes, and the logic model is a way for you to demonstrate how those pieces connect. And I will turn it over to Christy.
All right. I'm going to talk about the budget requirements for CBCAP. So for CBCAP, there is a 10% cash match requirement. And for that, on the application, we ask that you list the proposed cash match funding sources, and then also upload documentation of those sources. There's also an indirect costs are capped at 10% of the CBCAP budget. So that's also a limitation there. I did want to talk a little bit about direct versus indirect costs. So for this year, we no longer have a place in the budget for building space and maintenance. Those are overhead costs that should be included in the indirect line, and only direct costs. So costs related to providing direct services to children and their families should be included in all the other budget lines. So for I did want to point a couple of things out. For travel, you can include their costs incurred to provide transportation to families. That's a perfect description of CBCAP funded service. And then for contractual, part of CBCAP is working with your parents and caregivers to partner with them in the co-design of your program. And that's where you would want to include those expenses as under the contractual. As far as it goes for family supports, like housing services, respite care, et cetera, those would go under other direct costs. So we can move to the next slide. There is a budget template that we require you to use. Within that, there are very specific, we ask that you enter a justification on every single line that there is a CBCAP expense for. And you just be very specific about those justifications in the justifications column. For the personnel and benefits, we ask that you list the actual employee name or the position and have them just one funded person per line on that, just to give a clear picture of those being listed there. For the budget template, it's in Excel, so you have to have Excel to complete it. And there's lots of instructions on the instructions tab that will show when you open it up. So please review that prior to starting, and that will help you work your way through that template. Next slide. So the budget summary is a question. We took a screenshot of the question that's actually in the application just because we wanted to speak about that to make sure we're clear about what we're asking here. So this should be a summary of the CBCAP expenses listed in the budget template. We ask that you summarize by funding type, so personnel, benefits, travel, contractual, et cetera. And you do it by program. So we have just a short summary of each budget line within your thing. It doesn't need to be long and drawn out, just what are you funding? Kind of just summarize the justifications within your budget. Please do not include amounts in the description. It should only be describing the goods and activities the CBCAP portion of the budget is funding. What this is used for, so for anybody that's had a contract with or a grant with the Children's Cabinet, we use this as your scope of work in your contract. So that is how we use that. Next slide. Okay, so some required forms. So these are 4 different things that will be required to be uploaded or entered on your user profile within the Common App that we will go over here shortly. But I just wanted to list these here to make sure that that did not get missed because it's not part of the actual application. If you already have a user profile on the Common App, it's easy to forget to update that when submitting a new application. So just a reminder to not forget to make sure that's updated. Next slide. All right, dates and timelines. So the deadline for questions on the RFP is Monday, June 16th. That's to make sure that we have enough time to respond to your question and you have enough time to take that into consideration for your application. Then the applications are due on Monday, June 23rd at 5 o'clock. You will see when Clayton does the overview, there's a nice timer up in the right corner. And then after that, the application review period will be June 24th through July 31st, and that includes external reviews. We will recruit an external review team to review. Everybody's application will be reviewed by at least 2 external reviewers. We will propose these, we'll provide a slate of proposals, recommendations to the Children's Cabinet on their August 1st cabinet meeting, and they will vote on accepting those or not. But they will vote over those. If they approve the slate as recommended, or however they approve it, nothing is guaranteed until we actually receive our federal grant award from the feds, which we normally do not receive until mid to late September. And it's all reliant on them passing a federal budget as well. So in how much money we receive. So just because we have a slate of recommendations and they approve that at the August 1st cabinet meeting, if we don't get as much money as we think we are awarded from the feds, then that may change. So nothing is guaranteed until we have received our federal grant award. Next slide, or is that the last one? Perfect. All right, I think so there's Megan, Maggie, and I's contact information. If you have questions, we ask that you submit them through the TA form, not through us, but there we are. And then I think we'll talk about the website. Is that correct? We're just going to show you the RFP webpage where everything is linked. So this is being recorded. This webinar is being recorded. So this will be linked on this page here no later than sometime on Monday. And this is where this is like a one-stop shop for all the links you need to complete this RFP. There you'll get your technical assistance questions. So if you have a question, you can click on that link and it will pop up a form and submit it to us. And we will get back to you within 3 days, 3 business days. Thank you. And then gives you a little background of everything, which is also found in the RFP, which can be found right there, along with all the other support, the required attachments that are required to be uploaded to the application, and some other supporting documents. The questions submitted through the TA form, if we have received like quite a few of the same questions, we will add them continuously here. So if there's something that you think is probably, look here first, but this will be updated throughout the submission period. And then there is the apply here button that will take us to the Common App where where the application is live right there. So I think I will hand it over to Clayton and he'll walk us through this portion.
Yes, can everybody see my screen okay? Okay, awesome. Now we get to the fun part, not necessarily, but it's, actually building out the application. As you saw, you can access the Kansas Common App from the actual RFP page on the Children's Cabinet website, which will take you directly to this landing page of the Kansas Common App. You can log in or register in this left-hand side. If you already have an account, you can go right in and just press start application and it will take you to the application. So let me pull that up real quick. So this is the landing page that you will see once you have created an account or logged into your account. There's a main page with the application options, and then you can have a list view of the different applications that you have created or submitted. Right now, mine looks pretty messy because I've been doing a lot of testing on my applications, but you can go right in and just press start application for the CBCAP option. You'll be taken to this start here page for the application, which shares some just like general information about getting your application started. So we ask that you create your application name based on your organization. So whether that's, in my case, it would be University of Kansas Center for Public Partnerships and Research. But you can just type that in, and then you will also click on the Community-Based Child Abuse Prevention Federal Fiscal Year 2026. That should be the only option that you have. So it's pretty simple. And this will populate the information specific to the CBCAP application. So once you have selected the CBCAP Federal Fiscal Year 2026 option, everything for the entire application is populated. So there's information to fill out on the Start Here page, and then you can also subsequently access any of the following tabs for the application. As Christy mentioned, there is a timer up here that shows the amount of time left before the deadline. If that becomes anxiety inducing, you can just scroll down and it won't be visible anymore. But you can just simply walk through the application and fill in information as it is available. We suggest that you press save and next or save and close fairly often just to make sure that your application is being saved and backed up in case anything does happen. Thankfully, the platform has been fairly good about making sure that these kinds of glitches don't actually impact like the overall application, but it's just a best practice to be saving as you go. But like I mentioned, you can access any tab of the application at any point once you have started the application. So if it's easier to just walk through and fill out what you can and then go back to others, that is definitely a possibility. Some of these questions are conditionally formatted, which means they only show up based on the answer that you provide. There aren't very many of those questions, but I will give you just one example. So if you see this question of, is the fiscal agent organization the same as the applying organization? you can press yes and nothing will pop up. If you press no, subsequent questions will pop up that asks you for more information about that specific organization. But it's pretty simple. As you can see, we've designed this to hopefully be intuitive, that you can just walk along and complete the application as easily as possible. There's also a few instances where we ask you to upload documentation. So there are specific file types that are meant to be submitted in these options, and we've listed those out in the actual question field. So please try to make sure that you're uploading these documents in the format that it accepts. But at any point, if you have issues with that, please feel free to fill out a TA request, and I'm happy to support and make sure that your application includes all the necessary information. And then I'm continuing to look and see if there's more to talk about. We have these links available throughout the application where you can access the RFP webpage or the actual RFP itself. So these links are throughout the application, so it's easy to kind of just reference back to these core documents as needed. At the end, we also have a technical assistance tab, which links to the technical assistance form. Any of the technical assistance requests will either go to me or Christy. So there's two different options. There's the question about the RFP/funding, those questions that are more about, particularities of the grant opportunity, questions you might have about what's allowable, what's not, or specific nuances of your program. All those questions will go to Christy as she can answer those. Any of the questions about navigating the Common App will go to me, as I mentioned. So at any point, if you're having trouble saving your application, if you can't get something uploaded, please feel free to use that TA request form, and I'm happy to help where I can. To go back to the actual application, one thing that I do want to note, because we get a lot of questions usually, only one account can be working on the application for your organization. So unfortunately, we don't have a feature that allows multiple accounts to be working on a single application. So if you have partners or colleagues that you work with that will also be helping with the application, writing specific answers to questions, that's usually best done outside of the Common App, or you can either share one single account and work within the Common App. But that's kind of one limitation for how to operate. Christy, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I was going to point out there is an application outline that Lindsay posted in the chat I see just now, which is a Word document that has all these questions in there. So that could be a good opportunity for your group to work outside of the application together, and then have one person put all the information into the Common App when ready.
Yes, thank you for that addition. So just to reiterate what I mentioned earlier, but any places in the application where we're asking you to fill out a template, those are accessible on the cabinet webpage, but with the actual questions, they're also linked. So you do have easy access when you go to complete the budget portion to access the budget template on that question itself. And then once you make it through the entire application, we ask that you provide an electronic signature just to put your seal of approval when you submit the application. And I'm thinking that's probably all that I have. But if you do have any questions, please feel free to shout them out, and I'm happy to talk through them. Otherwise, I can hand it back to Christy or whoever is next in the list.
I think that is all that we have for our presentation today. So we will take questions. If you guys want to raise your hand or use the feature, use the raise hand feature, probably easiest, and then we can take any questions you guys might have. We must be really efficient.
There's a hand raised there, Christy.
Oh,
Tim.
sorry. I think my meeting is being recorded was hiding the hand. Hi, Tim. Oh, you're on mute.
There we go, Christy. Hey, question for you. So the question about moving the occupancy cost down into indirects. So does the 10% number encompass those occupancy, are those occupancy costs included in the calculation of that 10% number? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Because, you
Yeah.
know, those would kind of create for us, you know, like our indirects would be much less than 10% because those occupancy costs were always up above as a direct cost line item in the past. I have been including communications, for example, cost in the occupancy cost. I mean, can those be carved out of occupancy and put into the, like that other category or whatever on the grant? Or, I mean,
I'm not for sure what you mean by communications.
I'm thinking like phone, internet service.
Yeah, those would need to be included in indirect because they're an
Okay,
overhead piece
okay,
that you would have regardless if you had a
Yeah.
grant or not. Yeah.
because I guess I'm struggling with, you know, with those costs going under, being a part of that 10% calculation, then it almost makes it effectively like our indirects could maybe be 6 or 7% instead of 10 because we're moving those costs down now as a part of indirects, and they're not allowed to be, you know, there's no indirects being computed. Like in the past, indirects would be computed on the on that occupancy cost when it's set up above as a direct line item. So and I mean, we do have a federal indirect cost rate, but it sounds like we're capped at 10%. We can't use our federal indirect cost rate.
That's correct.
Okay. So anyway, I'll talk it over obviously with Vicky and everybody here, but yeah.
Yeah, and if you have additional questions, you can submit that through the form and
Sure.
ask for a call back. I think that's on the form where you get a call or email, and we can
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, that's fine. That's kind of what I was thinking too. So once I kind of formulate my question. So yeah, okay. Well,
Sure.
thanks, Christy.
You're welcome.
Christy,
Good to see you.
Just for clarification, I know we have like equipment being like cell phone and laptop has always been allowed. So we said phone, and to me, that's like a phone system that you can't like parse out the cost for an individual person, but a cell phone to go out into the field and do the job for an individual, that would be allowable.
Yes. Very good clarification. Thank you, Megan.
I wondered about that, Megan, too. I was going to ask that question about the cell phone cost.
Now, Vicky, you had your hand raised and then you took it down.
Yeah, I did. I was going to try to help him out, but you answered everything, so I'm good.
Any other questions?
Brina.
Yes, you may have answered it, but I just wanted clarity. I guess in my work, I'm kind of apprehensive on the DEI related to the executive order. Now, in using their protocol, I don't know the frequency of the change. Would CBCAP have a listing, or do we find it on our own to make sure we're in alignment as to what the executive order has for us in like writing the narrative? Like terminologies we should or should not be using as it relates to our clientele.
Yeah, the link to the executive orders is it kind of speaks to the types of services and language that the CBCAP program is expected to adhere to. The cabinet doesn't have any further guidance to provide grantees in that regard. So I would just refer to the executive order and just, and the RFP. So in terms of kind of how the RFP frames things would be also a good guide for you.
Thank you.
You bet. I will say that the work that CBCAP funds and does is in alliance already with executive orders, that the work is really intended to support all families and isn't excluding any families for any particular reason. So the work and the integrity of the federal application and funding is the same.
Well, it's a pretty quiet group. Oh, Natalie. As soon as I say that, somebody pops up.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Are you still expecting about the same number of grantees this time around? I mean, awards, or it just depends on the asks?
It depends on the ask. So
Okay.
we really, since it is a federal formula grant, we have no idea how, what our federal award will be. It had gone up for a couple of years, and this past one, it went down. So we never know what we're going to receive. And so, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I see a question in the chat about how many grantees we currently have. We have 9 community-based grantees and 1 statewide grantee. Christy, there's another question in the chat. I believe the answer is it doesn't matter, but do you want to answer that?
That is correct. So it's just overall, your overall budget for CBCAP, 10% cash match requirement. Yeah. Okay. So thank you, Lindsay. Sorry. Lindsay asked that I read that question. I just answered out loud. And the question was, can cash match be all in one program, or does that need to be spread across all programs? So in regards to CBCAP programs that you're applying for, if you're applying for more than one under the same applicant, then it has to be 10% overall of the CBCAP request. If you were an awardee in 2024, can you apply again in 2025? Absolutely. This is an open application, open competitive RFP.
There's another question just above it, and then I know Anne has her hand up.
Oh,
Do you see that
another
one?
question.
Did you already
Oh,
answer?
sorry, popped up really. Oh yeah, I think I did. Oh no. Can indirect costs be used as cash match? So instead of requesting 10% indirect, you contribute it as match. That might be the first time I've heard that question. I may have to get back to you on that, Sarah, unless Craig has any thoughts on that question.
Just to make sure that we're all on the same page, let's hold on answering that question. Let's get some more clarification just to ensure that we give the appropriate guidance. And then so we will follow up and we can put that out probably as I would imagine as one of these standard FAQ questions on the RP so that everybody sees the response to that question and we can provide clear guidance that way, just to make sure that we're all 110% on the same page.
Perfect. That's what I was thinking, but I just wanted to make sure. Sorry, Anne.
So when you do that 10% cash match and you have multiple programs, when you fill it out on the budget, there's a little red that pops up that says you don't have enough cash match and stuff at the top. So they need to ignore that, correct?
Yeah,
Because that
ignore
pops
that.
up
That's
and
just,
the indirect pops up at the bottom too. Just if
yeah,
there's somebody new applying.
Yes, thank you, Anne. That's a good point. Anne knows how my budget works. On each program, there is a validation message that pops up just letting you know. There's also one on the total budget tab of the budget. So if you're good, that will not pop up. You'll be clear. If you have a validation on the total budget tab, then you'll want to go relook at your budget to make sure you're in compliance with that 10% cap or the 10% minimum cash match. Okay. Is there a restriction of where the cash match comes from, state or other federal dollars? I need to refresh my memory.
The federal funds and in-kind contributions cannot be used for match.
Thank you. Okay, I wanted to make sure it wasn't state too. That's what I was looking.
Right.
It's in the RFP. I was double checking it, and you're correct, Megan. Thank you.
And that may end up answering the indirect question, but we'll double check that one. But that is most likely in kind in that situation, so it would probably be ineligible. We'll clarify.
I'm going to say we're quiet again. So waiting for the next question to pop up. And it didn't. Well, if there's no more questions, I think we'll give you guys back 11 minutes of your time, and we will get that indirect. Lindsay, if you wouldn't mind sending that question in the chat so we can get back with Sarah to our group so we can answer that for Sarah and then also put it out as the FAQ, that'd be wonderful. Thank you. So yeah, we'll give you guys back some 10 minutes of your day, and thank you for being here, and look forward to reading your proposals.